Today, I will show you how to configure a form for your vector layer to collect data with conditional visibility and use it either directly in your QGIS project or in the field using QField app. Also, I'm going to show you how to configure your layer to collect a photo. Hi, welcome to my channel, QGIS English. In this example, I'm going to upload this project to QFieldCloud, and then we're going to test it in QField app. To start, I want to show you the fields of the point observation layers, which is the layer that I'm going to use to create this conditional visibility form. So I'm going to the properties and the fields. I have 5 different fields. They're all text in this case, including the field that I'm going to use for the photo. In order to work with conditional visibility, we need to have domain list in some of these fields. In this example, I'm going to show you how to add some of these domain lists or options manually. And also I'm going to show you how to import a list that I have in a CSV file directly into one of these fields. Okay, now to start configuring our form, I'm going to go to the attribute form section, and I'm going to change the attribute form from auto-generate to drag and drop designer. And here I'm just going to leave the fields that I want to use in my form, which is, in this case, this 5 with the exception of the fit. And I'm going to start with the observation type. So in the case of the observation type, I want to have 2 options for the user. One is to answer if the observation type either a plant or an animal. And then when they answer, let's say plant, only this plant species field should show up in the form. So to start with this, I'm gonna select observation type, and I'm gonna change the widget type to value map. And then here is where we can add these values. So I'm gonna call it 1 for plant and 2 for animal. And then I'm gonna click apply. Also, if we want, we can add an alias. So we can say like, what is the observation type? And I click apply again. Now, in order for only the plant species to show up if number, in this case, number 1 is selected, so we have to create some conditions. So now I'm gonna add this container, and I'm gonna call it, for this one is gonna be for the plant question, plant species field. So I'm just gonna call it plant species. So that way it makes sense and it's easier to understand it. I'm gonna leave the container type as a tab. There is some more options like group box or row, but I'm gonna just leave it as a tab. And then since I only have very few questions or very few fields, I'm gonna just leave my number of columns as 1. Okay, so we can see here that this group or this container have been created. So I'm gonna drag this plant species into this container. Okay, so now I'm gonna select the plant species container, and then in control visibility by expression, I'm gonna turn it on, and I'm gonna write a simple expression, which is in this case the name of the field that I'm gonna use to create this condition. In this case is observation type. If observation type equals to plant species, or in this case the value was 1, observation type is 1, then I want to see this field. So I can start typing, and technically QGIS will recognize the fields that I have in my form. So I'm gonna say observation type equals to 1, because that was the value that I used for plant. And I'm gonna use quotations. It's better to use quotations because I found some errors when we don't use it. So I'm gonna leave it as this, observation type equals to 1. I'm gonna click apply. Now I'm gonna go to the field plant species because I wanna add the domains or the list for this field. So now I'm gonna change the widget type again to value map to add those values. But in this case, I have a long list of plant species that I have in a CSV file. So you can do it again manually, but if you have a long list, you can import it from a CSV file. So load data from CSV file. Okay, here I'm gonna select my CSV file. And we can see that this list of plant species is added. However, the number one, we can see that is the headers of my CSV column. So I'm gonna just select it and remove it. And now that I have all this list, I'm gonna click apply. Okay, so I have the plant species and group with the field. So I'm gonna do the same, but with animal species. So I go back and I add one of those containers by clicking on the plus sign. In this case, I'm gonna call it animal species. I'm gonna leave it as a tab again, and now I click OK, and I'm gonna grab the animal species field, and I'm gonna drag it into that group. And again, so I select the container, I turn on control visibility by expression, and I do the same observation type. In this case, it's going to be number 2 because that's the value that I use for the animal species. And then I click apply. Okay, so I have those two, and now I'm gonna go into the actual field, animal species field, and I'm gonna also change it to value map. Okay, and now I'm just gonna add manually few animal species, and let's say I'm just gonna do mammals. I'm gonna do descriptions the same, mammals, birds, and let's do reptiles. Now that I'm done with those three, I'm gonna click apply. Okay, but something else that I'm gonna do here, so I'm gonna create a subgroup. And actually, you know what? If you notice here, I can tell that my animal species field is not in my container. So we can tell because the arrow here is not showing. So I need to make sure I drag it better in there and I put it in the container. Okay, so now it is in there. Still observation type 2, and I have my values that I just added. Okay, but now I'm gonna add a subgroup. Okay, so now when someone selects from the animal species field birds, I want this bird type to show. So I'm going to add one more container, and I'm just gonna call it the same bird type so that way it's easier to understand or it's easier to follow me. The same tab for the container type, and then I click OK. But now I'm gonna grab this container tab and I'm gonna drag it within the animal species container. So now I have a sub container, subgroup in here. So I'll grab now my bird type field and I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna make sure to add it to right container. So now I see the arrow and I see bird type in here. But now this bird type also needs to have that control visibility by expression. And in this case, since this is bird type, I'm gonna use the field animal species is equal quotation birds. Okay, and now I click apply, and I'm gonna go to the field bird type, and you can leave it, as a text edit, or again, we can add a couple values. So let's say geese, duck, pelican. And now I click apply. Okay, so now I have my conditional visibility for all these fields all configured. Something else that I'm going to do is the photo, right? So we have the photo, and right now the photo is outside of this container. But if we want to add it to each of these groups, we can do that. It's still going to be only one field, but if you can only show it in one of the containers if you want to. So what I'm going to do is just going to drag it, and I'm going to place it in this group, and I'm going to do the same. So I'm going to grab it from here, from the available widgets, and I'm going to add it to my animal species container. Okay, so now I have the photo in each of these groups. Again, it's only one field, but it's only going to show when we select one of the groups. However, the photo field still hasn't been set up to allow to collect photos in it. So I'm going to select it from here from the available widgets, and I'm going to go to widget type again, but now I'm going to change it to attachment. Here, we can change the storage path to relative to project path. And here, this is the default path of the picture in my computer. However, when we upload this into QField Cloud, the storage or the default path is going to change. So that's something to pay attention on. Okay. Something else that we have to do is we need to change the integrated document viewer to image if that's what we want to collect. Of course, you see that there's some more options, but in this case, we're going to do image or photo. And now I click on apply, and I think my form is almost ready. There's something else that we can do actually to make our form to look a little better. So if I go back to the observation type field, right, I have the alias, which is what is the observation type. If we want to make, let's say, this question to look a little better, we can even change the color. So this option here, overwrite label color or overwrite label font, we can change that. So if we select this, we can change the color of the label, and let's say we just use some blue for color for that, and I click OK. And for the font, you can also change the font if you want to. Let's just change it to something simple. And then I click on apply now. And okay. Now I'm going to save my project, and I'm going to test this here in QGIS in my project. So if I enable editing and I select one of these points and I add a point, we can see of course the color have changed, and we have the observation type. What is the observation type? If I select plant, only plant species shows up, and I can of course select one of the plant species and I can add a photo. Of course, this is from my computer, so I can browse to the location where I have a photo and I add it here. I'm gonna cancel. Actually, before I cancel this, let's try the same but with animal, because we have the subgroup in here. So if I click on animal, and then I only see the animal species. If I select mammals, nothing happens, of course, because that's the end of the form for it. But if I select birds, I should have this subgroup where I can select geese, duck, or pelican. And of course, I also have the photo field within this group. Okay, so it looks good and it's working in QGIS in the project. I'm gonna cancel this. I'm not gonna add it. But what I'm going to do is now I'm going to upload it to QFieldCloud, and I'm going to open it in QField app. If you're not familiar with QField for QGIS and QFieldCloud, I would recommend you watching this video. Okay, so to upload this project to QFieldCloud, I'm going to go to my plugin QField Sync that I already downloaded, and I have it here on the top right. And first, I'm gonna configure my current project. We need to make sure we save the project. I think I did. I'm gonna just double check and save it one more time. Okay. And then here I can add the base map if I want to. And I'm just gonna do this briefly, just double checking that all my layers are here. You can leave it as the action as copy, or you can change it to like offline editing. I'm gonna leave it as a copy for now, and I'm gonna click apply. Everything looks correct. And now I'm gonna go to the cloud to upload this to QFieldCloud. Then you have to enter your username and password. And then to add a new project to the cloud, you do click on create new project here in the bottom left. I would always just leave it as a recommended. You can change the name. I'm gonna change it to actually conditional visibility. So this is a local directory where my project is going to be after I upload it to the cloud. Now I'll click on create. Okay, now I'm going to open QField app in my mobile device. So see you there. Okay, now here in QField app, I'm using, just so you know, Android mobile device. I go to my projects that are within QField Cloud projects, and Then you search for the project that you just uploaded. Of course, I already signed in. If you need to do that, you can enter your username and password. And then I'm gonna select it to download it on my mobile device. And now that it has been downloaded, I'm going to select it again to open the project. So now we're just gonna test to make sure the form with the conditional visibility, it is working correctly also here. I see that my layers are here. I enable editing, select the point layer, and I'm gonna go back to the map. And I can see the observation type field is showing up. I have the two options. I'm gonna start with plant species. I have this list, and we can take a photo. So yes, I will check too that is working correctly. Okay, so I see that my picture is working, or my photo field is working correctly. And I click on the check mark to submit this point. Okay, so now I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna just test the second option. Do animal, and I can see my fields are showing up. If I select mammals, there's not another subgroup here, but if I do birds, I can select one of them, and of course I can add a photo. I click on the check mark one more time, and I can see that both of my forms were working correctly. Okay, that's all I wanted to show you. I hope this video was helpful to you. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section. Thank you.